Hi everyone, my name is Akshay Nanavati, the founder of ExistingToLiving.com, where we help entrepreneurs and working professionals make more money on their own terms so they can live a life filled with balance, joy, freedom, passion, and fulfillment. Now, although most of my work focuses in the business realm and helping people create, through sales and marketing and mastering their business, really what it's all about is mastering the art of change. And how do we do that? Because no matter what arena of your life that you want to change, it presents challenges. It doesn't matter whether it's just money. It could also be trying to quit smoking, trying to create an exercise routine, whatever it may be. So what we're going to talk about today is how to actually make that happen. How to create enduring change. And that's what this video is all about. Because I'm sure many of you have had those moments where we're trying to ingrain new habits and it really presents itself to be a struggle. And I know exactly how that goes as well. In my life, I have recovered from back in high school. I spent a year and a half wasting my life with drugs and alcohol and just squandering away my existence. But almost overnight, I managed to change that. I joined the Marines. I served 6 years in the Marines. I did one tour in Iraq. Since then, I've graduated with a master's degree in journalism from one of the best journalism schools in the country. I've traveled to 6 of the 7 continents climbing mountains. I skied 1 month across Greenland. It's the second largest ice cap in the world, where we were dragging a 190-pound sled for 350 miles. And today I've started 2 of my own business, and I'm happily married here in New Jersey. But I went through a lot of challenges to create this life of my own terms. From recovering through drugs and now creating the habit patterns that allow me to run my own business, especially when I'm so used to that structure of the Marines and getting out of that and building my own business. It's been a challenge. And I'm sure a lot of you are going through similar challenges. So what I want to talk to you about today in this video, how to create enduring change, we're going to go through a step-by-step framework of how to actually do that. And this will apply to whether you want to quit your own job and start your own business, or perhaps you have patterns that you procrastinate in starting your own business. Whether you want to write a book, whether you want to stop smoking, these steps will allow you to create any change that you want to create in your life. That's why I call it enduring change. So without further ado, let's move on right to the framework. The first step in that framework is going to be laying the foundation. And the way we're going to do this is with the tool that I call the Pyramid of Destiny. I'm really excited about this tool because it's never been revealed to anyone before ever. And what it is really a simplified way to understand how we work as human beings, why we do the things that we do, and what drives us on a daily basis. Because only when we understand this can we make enduring change possible. So we're going to first set up this foundation, and then we're going to move into the step-by-step plan on how to use this foundation to create enduring change. We're going to talk about how to create habits that actually stick, because as I'm sure we all know, it's pretty hard to actually do that. Habits sometimes fade after a week, sometimes maybe even less, sometimes a little bit more. But we're going to talk about this time-tested and proven method to make habits stick. This is backed by research. And all of these tools I'm sharing is not something I just came up with overnight. It's something that I've developed through my own patterns of change that I've created in my life, as well as through studying and mastering the art of change from some of the greatest minds in peak performance and human potential development throughout history. So I'm really excited about all this information. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it. If you have any questions about it as we move forward, please post any question you have in the comments below, and I'll be sure to answer it as soon as I can. So without any further ado, let's move right on to the foundation and then the step-by-step plan to create enduring change. This here is the foundation. This is what I was telling you about. This is what I call the Pyramid of Destiny. This is going to be the basic first step before we can go into the other steps and the step-by-step plan on how to create enduring change. Because what this right here tells us is how we work as human beings, why we do the things that we do, and what drives us. Right now, it may look like a jumbled mess, and I know my handwriting is terrible, so excuse that. But it makes sense, and I'm about to explain it to you and why this is so valuable. So right at the bottom, at the very basic foundation of the way we work is the need to avoid pain and the desire to gain pleasure. Everything we do is rooted in those two forces in conflict or sometimes even working together. So no matter what you're doing, whether I keep bringing up smoking because that's a powerful thing that people are always trying to change that habit, but let's look at something else. Maybe you're trying to bring up an exercise routine. And why can't you do it? Because you're associating more pain to the act of exercising than you are to the pleasure of being physically fit or the high you get after exercise. So this right here is the very basic foundation of why we do everything we do, the need to avoid pain and the desire to gain pleasure. We're going to talk more as we move into the elements and the step-by-step framework, why this is so valuable, because that's really everything that we do. The next step is what I have created this acronym called A-Success. And these are the 9 human needs. Every single human being is driven by these needs. Right above the pain and pleasure is the human needs that drive us. And so whenever we want to create change, we got to figure out what are the needs that we're getting to meet by doing certain things. So let's go back to the exercise example. If you don't want to exercise, maybe it's because you get to be too comfortable. You get to be comfortable in sitting down on the couch watching TV or whatever it may be. Maybe by victimizing yourself and saying, oh, I'm trying, but time is coming in the way and I have too many other things to do. We get to feel significant. We get to feel really powerful that, I'm so busy all the time and I'm working so hard, so I don't get to exercise. So I'm going to break down this acronym for you before we move to the rest of the pyramid. So A-Success, what does this stand for? The acronym helps kind of make it easier for you to understand the step-by-step framework here. So the first need that we all have is a need for autonomy. And this is the need to be self-governing. It's the need to do things for ourselves. And that's why in Daniel Pink's book, Drive, he talks about how companies that employ the need, who make their workers, their employees, work with this need, a need for autonomy, they are far more successful and they have more employee engagement than those that operate from a place of carrot and stick. Because we all have this need. We want to work for ourselves. We want to feel fulfilled in knowing that we are creating our own destiny and not being dictated to somebody else, dictated by somebody else, and working for, a reward or a punishment. So that's the first one. The next one is a need for service. And this is a desire to do something greater than ourselves. And this need is usually, it's something that we all have, but to all of us express it in different levels. But we all have that need to do something more than ourselves. We're going to talk about how this is actually one of the most powerful needs you can tap into in order to create enduring change. Right here, this is the number one need to really hone in and set habits to make it foundational and make it apply across time and through anything that comes in your way, through any obstacle. The next one is uncertainty. We all have a need to do something exciting. Otherwise, life gets boring, right? We can't just sit in front of our TV for the rest of our lives. There's nothing exciting about that. So we all have a need to do something a little exciting, to require uncertainty. And the other end of that, we have a need for comfort. Or you could also look at it as certainty. These two needs kind of conflict, but we have both those needs. We want to be comfortable. We want to have a home that keeps us secure, but at the same time, we want to have something that gets us excited to go out and do. We all have drives to do more with our lives. Sometimes fear keeps us paralyzed, but we can also use that fear to push through into uncertainty, into the unknown. That's a really powerful need right there. That's what makes us grow. And this keeps us in a place of security. We need that as well. The next one is connection. And this is the need for love, for just connection with fellow human beings. We all have this as well. We all like to, how many of us want to be in a relationship? Relationships are what cause, most suicides are caused by some sort of lack of a need for connection, or a need for connection that's been destroyed. It's because this is a very powerful need. It's a really existential need, as Erich Fromm says in his book, The Anatomy of Human Destructiveness. That's a really powerful one as well. The next one is a need called existence. And this is a need most of us have met in today's society. This is simply the need for food, the need for sleep, for water. This is things that keep us alive. So most of us have met this need, so we don't often experience this until we venture out into very hostile environments. I've been in a few of those, whether it may be Greenland or climbing mountains or Iraq. So this need comes into play. And this is kind of the basic need. Once you meet this, you get to kind of venture into some of these other ones. So this is the step-by-step, this is the step right here in order to go into the other ones. But since we've met all of this, I don't spend a lot of time here. The next need is for a spiritual need. And spiritual, you can define this in religious sense or spiritual sense if you don't believe in a God or higher power. Whatever you believe, this is the need for something greater than ourselves. We're searching for meaning. All of us are looking, more often than not, we're distracted by our world, but all of us are still looking for that meaning. What is our place on this planet? What are we doing here? Viktor Frankl wrote about it in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He was a psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz during the Holocaust. In his whole book, he talks about this one of being the driving forces of human behavior is the need to find out what it is we are doing on this planet. What is our place here? What is our role here? And that's what spiritual is all about. It's kind of connecting ourselves to something greater than ourselves. And this is not in service in the sense of like doing something for somebody else. This is spiritual in the sense of finding out what our place is. And what is that higher power, however you want to define it? There's no qualms about whether it's God or whether it's the universe or whether it's the oneness of all humanity, whatever it may be. That's a spiritual need. And then another need that we all have is a need for significance. This can be significance, recognition, status, Believe it or not, well, I mean, when we do the things we do, sometimes speaking on a stage, why do some people love that? Because it gets to feel significant, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're often taught by society that it's wrong to feel that need, like it's almost like we're bragging or it's almost pride, but we all have it, so use it. We're going to use this tool in the framework we're going to talk about here coming up in a few minutes. Use the need for significance to create lasting change. And we're going to address that in more detail. But it is a really powerful need, and let's not discount it, because we don't want to say that, we don't want to ascribe by that societal doctrine that meeting a need for significance is somehow being prideful or bragging. It's not. It's just a need we all have, and let's utilize that. And finally, you might notice this is 8 needs. The 9th human need is basically success itself. Success itself. Like I said, excuse the handwriting. But success itself, that's the desire for growth. Success is not just monetarily growth, it's the desire to grow physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that's what success is all about. That's how I define it, as growth. And this could also be financially, but we all have that desire to do more with our lives, the desire to grow. Otherwise, we are just static. Human beings are not static creatures. Look at where we've come from many, many years ago, from thousands of years ago to where we are now. The reason for that is because of the need for success, the need to grow as human beings. So these are the 9 human needs. Now let's go back to that pyramid that we were talking about. So as you can see, the 9 human needs are at the very bottom of the pyramid, which is, kind of based on this need for pain, the desire to avoid pain and gain pleasure. So moving up from the 9 human needs, we have our values and beliefs. Our values are the things we strive for. Some people have, my values are things like adventure, things like uncertainty, things like family. That's a value that I have. And we use our values to figure out where we want to go in our lives. That's kind of the targets. The belief is how we know we get to that target. The beliefs are all the things that sometimes they hold us back or they allow us to excel. I mean, you could have a belief that I'm too young to be talking to anybody on a stage, or I'm too old to start a business. How could I possibly start a business? Or I don't have the resources. These are all beliefs. These are all stories we tell ourselves. They are not the truth. Our beliefs are our foundation, and a lot of these things are rooted in us from a young age, from our parents. But the best part is you can actually change that. Say you haven't been ingrained with empowering beliefs or empowering values. You can change that in time. And one of the documents as part of this whole package, that what I call the Explorer's Pack and the Life Mastery Blueprint, is how to change your limiting beliefs, how to use them, and how to use your beliefs to drive you forward. Because the thing is, if you don't believe you can succeed, you will not succeed. The values and the beliefs drive our actions. They determine whether we will succeed or not. So we gotta have empowering beliefs and empowering values. Then we have our experiences. This is life experiences. As you know, many of the experiences we have in life are outside of control. But as you'll notice, these 3 things are on the same plane, just above our human needs. And I'll explain that in a second. But our experiences are also shaped by the beliefs that we have. Now let's say, for example, let's go back to Viktor Frankl. He was placed in a concentration camp. Most of us couldn't possibly survive that. I don't know how. I don't know if I could. But Viktor Frankl was somebody who not only survived that, but he created empowered meaning from that. Why? Because he had a belief that no matter what life is going to throw his way, he's going to find meaning in it. He had a belief that drove him to create value from that experience, that led him up this triangle and to create an empowered destiny. So experiences are not just shaped in their own right. They're shaped by the values and beliefs we have and the stories we tell ourselves about that experiences. Because experiences have no inherent meaning. The meaning is what we assign it to them. Let me ask you a question. Now, say if I were to ask you, say you have black hair, and I asked you, do you have, and I told you you have blue hair, would you get upset? No, right? Why? Because you know you have black hair. Now, let's say you were a little not confident in yourself, and I told you you're weak or you're unable to do anything in life. It might trigger you. It might hurt you a little bit, right? And it's not because the experience of me telling you that. It's because the belief you have about yourself that led you to create that experience as something disempowering. If you had a belief about yourself that said, I am the toughest person in the world and nothing can come in my way, it wouldn't matter what I told you. Your response would be like, Akshay's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about, right? So it's about the beliefs that shape our experiences. And the third factor that shapes our experiences and that also is shaped by our values and beliefs is our state. Let me address that here. This is our state. And what I mean by that is this is our emotional state. Our emotional state at any moment can control how we experience things, and it controls the beliefs and values we'll form about an experience. That's why they're all 3 on the same plane. How does that work? Let's say you go into a store and you come in and you're just depressed and you're really upset, and somebody kind of accidentally bumps you in the store. what are you going to do? You're going to get even more upset. You're going to push him or something. Like you're going to get, what are you doing? You're going to get upset, right? It's going to trigger you in a bad way. But now let's say you walk in there and you're on top of the world. Like you just made your first $1 million. The life couldn't be better. And somebody just nudged into you accidentally. Would you get upset? No. So your state controls the experiences. And these are the 5 things that control your state, your emotional state. It's your language patterns. Language patterns are very powerful. You will hear people often say things like, I'm so depressed, life is so tough. Now what if instead of saying I'm so depressed, you said something like, I'm a wee bit perturbed right now, or I'm a wee bit upset, something silly to kind of make yourself laugh. Do you realize how that different language actually changes the whole way you experience that emotion? You're no longer depressed. You're now a wee bit upset, right? What does that even mean? Like you're going to start smiling a little bit just by saying something silly like that, right? So our language controls us. And how we determine that language is often by the questions we ask ourselves. And the questions we ask ourselves determine how we associate meaning to experiences. The meaning we create controls our state. Like I said, you have that experience, somebody pushed you in a store. You could make it mean that the guy was a jerk, or you could make it mean the poor guy he was maybe tired, it was accidental. You create that meaning. And that's really powerful because the meaning will control your state. And how we use these 2 forces of language and meaning are really controlled by the questions we ask ourselves. So let's look at this. Let's look at it this way. A lot of people ask disempowering questions like, why do these bad things always happen to me? Why can't I ever make this work? Why can't I stop eating junk food? Now, if you ask yourself those questions, what kind of answers do you think your mind is going to give you? You're going to stay in a pretty down state because you're only focusing on all the things you can't do. Now, if you ask yourself questions like, great, okay, this happened. How can I use this opportunity to help me grow? How can I use this opportunity to help me advance in life, to help me to create success, right? So you can ask different questions that'll start leading to new meanings, that'll start creating new language patterns, that'll improve your state and move you up this triangle in an empowered way. The third part that controls your state is physiology. Physiology is your body language. I mean, if I was sitting here like this, what would you think? You'd think I'm pretty down, right? But I'm standing up. Your physiology actually controls how you feel. In Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink, they actually talked about how they've done studies and shown the physical act of smiling actually makes people happier. They've done it with people who are severely depressed, and just smiling made them actually physically happier. So it's really powerful to use your physiology to control your state. The next step is, the next controlling factor in your state is perspective. Perspective is what you focus on. Really, in any event in life, there could be 2 ways to look at it, an empowering way and a disempowering way. There's no bad or good because whatever you look at is somehow serving you. You're meeting some need from everything you do in life, meeting some need, everything. Even if you don't like what you're doing, even if you are smoking or eating junk food, you're meeting a need by doing that. We're going to get more into that as we go into how to actually create the enduring change. But perspective is how you then perceive that scenario. Like again, going back to the Viktor Frankl example, he could have the focus of, oh my God, life is terrible. He didn't deserve to go to a concentration camp, but it happened. He could then choose to say, okay, I'm going to let this kill me, I'm going to let this beat me, or I'm not. That's perspective, because most of life happens outside your control, and you get to choose how you want to perceive that experience of life. And finally, something that's might sound a little like, maybe you won't fully grasp this concept, but what I call the zone. The zone is an extremely powerful way to create an empowered state. What the zone is, athletes will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's when you're so focused, it's almost like there is no state. At that moment, there is no time, there is no values, there is no beliefs, there's no experiences. It's like you're fully devolved, you're fully involved in this moment of time. Nothing else exists. There's a stillness. It's a kind of state of pure stillness, pure experience. And that's really the striving state we all want to get to, right? Or at least, I mean, we can't live in that state, granted. Otherwise, we're living almost like animals. As George Bataille said, animals live like water is to water, in that they just are there. They simply exist. We have the benefit of consciousness to allow us to drive forward, allow us to perceive our experiences and think about them and separate ourselves from them. But the zone is a powerful state to actually really make this whole triangle really empowered. The more you get into this state, the more you can empower your life. And that's why physical activity, pushing yourself physically through running or swimming or whatever it may be, is a really powerful way to get into this state. But that's not the only way. You can do it through reading a book. You can get in the zone where you're 100% focused and time seems to end. You know, and the zone but combining it with challenge and meeting that need for success, for growth, and combining that with the zone is one of the most empowered states you can be in. So now that we have the experiences, your value, beliefs, and your state that are all driven by the human needs, which is also driven by the need to avoid pain and the desire to gain pleasure, the next step is action. Action is the only thing that separates successful people from unsuccessful ones, from failures. You have to take action. No matter how strong your belief is, if you could believe that you're the strongest person in the world, unless you take action, you're not going to get anywhere you want to go. So above all of this is the action cycle. And this is taking action, you get feedback, and then there's a reaction to that feedback. Let's say, for example, you one day come home and you're upset at your wife, right? Whatever the example may be, and I start yelling at her. The feedback is not good. Now she's like, let's say I'm not even upset at my wife. I'm upset at something that happened at work, and I take it out of my wife. Her feedback is really, then she gets mad at me. The reaction is now we've got into a fight. So now I've learned from that that's not the way to handle my upset if I come back from work and I'm not really happy, right? There's better ways to handle that. So the action cycle is everything we do is based on some sort of feedback from a young age. When we do something, our parents tell us not to do it. Now we get feedback, then we have a reaction to that feedback, and we go back through this cycle. So that's what, and what controls your action cycle? It's all of this stuff, right? Because now say you take an action and you get a feedback, how you respond to that feedback, your reaction, could very often be based on your values and beliefs, the previous experiences you've had in the past. I mean, if you've had a traumatizing experience in the past, any new trigger, that's what post-traumatic stress disorder is all about. That's why sometimes even when I came back from Iraq, loud noises would kind of trigger me, right? Because now in the past I've had loud noises equal bad things, so that's the feedback, and my reaction is to jump. Why? Because that's based on past experiences and belief that loud noises equals bad things. So my state changes, and that leads to a new action. But you can change all of this to lead to new feedbacks and reactions and actions. And that is what controls your destiny. That's why this is so powerful. This is a real breakdown of how we work as human beings. It's the human needs, it's our values, our beliefs, our experiences, the state, and then most importantly, the action. Whatever you want to create in your life, all this stuff, the $1 million, the running an ultra marathons, whatever it may be in your life, starting your own business, you know how to work this, and this is a guaranteed. So now that we've established the foundation, let's go into how we can actually use this to create the life that we want to create. Now we're going to go into the 10 steps to enduring change. And throughout this process, I'm going to flip back and forth to the foundation because a lot of what we learned there really applies to these 10 steps. So the very first step in making any change is to know yourself. You got to know where you are. You cannot go from point A to point B unless you know where point A is. Think about it this way. Imagine you're abandoned in the woods somewhere and you're told to find your way out. It's going to be near impossible unless you're handed a compass and a map. Even then, it's a struggle, but at least now you can figure out where you are. And then from there, you can figure out where you need to go. So coming back to this, the pyramid here, the foundation, in order to know yourself, let's look at all these steps. You got to know what it is that drives you away from pain and what it is that drives you to pleasure. We all have different things. Like, for example, I love to spend months skiing across an ice cap or running an ultramarathon. That may be a lot of pain to many people, but there's pleasure for me in that pain. Granted, it's physically painful, but do you get that it's more pleasurable, the outcome? That's what we're focusing on. That's actually how you make lasting changes, to shift these associations. So first you got to know what your associations are. Then you got to know what your needs are. Out of these 9 needs of a success, you got to figure out which are your top needs. What are the needs that drive you? Because through these needs, you'll then be able to make changes you need to make. Because you'll know maybe you're avoiding exercise because you value comfort so much. So how can you then associate comfort to the post-exercise thing? You can start associating pleasure to the after the exercise as opposed to the pain of the actual act of exercising, and somehow meet that same need. It's extremely comfortable and extremely relaxing after I've done a hard day of exercise, right? Whatever it may be. Same thing with smoking, same thing with drinking. If you drink too much, you get to meet some of these needs. So find out what are your top needs. My top needs are uncertainty and significance. That's why I'm standing in front of you talking today. It makes me feel significant. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I can say this to be honest with you because I enjoy that. I enjoy speaking. It meets that need for me. I also love uncertainty. That's why I climb mountains. That's why I do those things. Spiritual is my third top need. I seek meaning in the things that I do. So there's no right or wrong about what those needs are. But once you know what your needs are, then you can use those needs to drive you forward and to make the changes you want to make. So first find out. Ask yourself, just take a look at your life. What are your top 3 needs? Those are the top 3 needs are going to be your driving needs. Those are the most powerful ones that'll push you forward. So find out what those 3 are. And you can even spend some time ranking these needs in order. I hope you got a chance to write them down. I know I'm a fast talker, but I'm going to repeat them again just in case you haven't. There's autonomy, service, uncertainty, comfort, connection, existence, spiritual, significance, and success itself. So rank those needs in order of what your top needs are. Then you got to find out, what are your values? What do you strive for? What are your passions? It's almost like your values and your passions are in many ways interconnected, right? For me, my passion is climbing mountains because my values are adventure. So there's a document in the documents below you'll see called a stillness survey. The reason I call it the stillness survey is because when you're really living your passion, you find yourself being still. It's like that's when you're in the zone, right? So find out what your values are. Find out, what are your beliefs? Are there beliefs that are holding you back? Do you believe that you're too young, you're too old, you can't do this because there's not enough resources? Whatever the beliefs are, maybe you don't have any of those beliefs. Maybe your beliefs that I can do anything and anything that comes my way. Maybe your belief is that whenever there's a problem, there's always a solution. That's a pretty empowering belief, right? So find these out. And then take some time to actually look at your language patterns. What is the meaning you create to situations? What are the questions you ask yourself? Are your questions you ask yourself disempowering or empowering? Take a look at the perspective. Take a look at what it actually takes to create, to put you in the zone. That's the kind of connected to your values. Take a look at when situations present themselves, do you look at them in a disempowering way or an empowering way? All of these will get to know where you are, and we're going to get to how to change that in a minute. But first, just understand where you are. The action cycle we'll get to in a minute. Right now, we're going to focus on the being. This is kind of the doing part. This is the being part. We're going to kind of focus on the bottom half of this pyramid here, because that's what leads to the top part. You got to have the being in order first. So once we know ourselves, the next step in creating enduring change is to be a warrior, not a victim. And what do I mean by that? Being a warrior is about asking those empowering questions. Being a warrior takes 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life. In Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principle, Jack Canfield is one of my mentors. I'm actually working with him personally this year through some trainings and really developing the art of success, if you will. So in his book, The Success Principles, his very first principle is take 100% responsibility for your life. That's what this means. A victim blames circumstance. It's somebody else's fault. It's something else's fault. You know the most powerful way to develop a relationship? What is the most empowering relationship? When both parties can take 100% responsibility for everything that happens in a relationship. How can you ever fight if everybody's taking 100% responsibility, right? That's what being a warrior is about. It's asking questions like, okay, this circumstance happened. What can I do about this? What is good about this? What can I learn from this? As opposed to, why do bad things keep happening to me? That's right, blaming circumstance. So I know that sometimes life happens outside your control, but being a warrior is about shaping your attitude. It's about controlling that perspective. That's what you got to do. Viktor Frankl, who I quote a lot because his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which I highly recommend, is one of the most outstanding books you'll ever read. And his story is just spectacular. But he once said that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Do you get it? So between stimulus, bad economy, president getting reelected, whatever you don't like, and response is that space. And that space is what determines whether you become a warrior or a victim. So you get to choose how you want to go. The next step in creating enduring change is ingrain unbreakable confidence. Without confidence, it's almost impossible to do anything. If you don't believe it to be possible, you can't do it. So you have to be confident in yourself to make changes. And that's what shaping those beliefs are all about. That's how you develop confidence, is to create new beliefs. So how do we do that? In the space below, there's a document called Calibrate Your Compass. That'll really break down step by step on how to create new empowering beliefs. But let's look into other ways to develop to ingrain that unbreakable confidence. Really, it's about the inner self-talk. These are about, again, the questions you ask yourself. You have to start asking yourself new questions. And that's easier said than done, right? If we're so conditioned in a certain pattern, it's not going to change overnight. So an exercise I really recommend is at the end of every day, look into a mirror and acknowledge yourself for the things you've done today. Acknowledge yourself for the successes you've achieved, for the disciplines you held. Maybe be proud that I celebrate that I did not eat that chocolate today, or I did not eat unhealthy. I acknowledge myself for exercising today. Whatever it may be, and tell yourself I love you. Because self-love is how it all starts. So you have to develop that self-love in order to move forward. You have to be able to believe that you're capable of doing so. So that's how you ingrain unbreakable confidence. And one of the strongest ways to really do that as well is to take risks. Self-confidence is the result of successfully having survived a risk. So you have to take risks.
Start slow if you need to. You don't have to go jumping out of a plane just yet if that terrifies you. Take a small step. If public speaking terrifies you, don't speak in front of 1,000 people audience right now. Go to a Toastmasters meeting or speak in front of your families. Take small steps and build that confidence. That'll help you create other changes in your life. And one of the strongest ways to do that is also to start doing exercise. In Charles Duhigg's best-selling book called The Power of Habit, he found studies have found that through exercise, it actually leads to more empowering changes in other areas of your life. It's because you start with that body, and now you've conditioned a well-being that'll lead to changes in all areas of your life, and that'll build that confidence as well. How confidence will be if you got that tight six-pack or whatever it is you're looking for, right? That builds confidence. So these are all different strategies to change that inner talk and to build the body so you're now confident to take on any changes you need to take on in your life. The fourth step to enduring change is to create a compelling why. So what do I mean by that? Simon Sinek, in his best-selling book, Start With Why, said that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The why is the driving force. It's your leverage, it's the reasons why you move forward. So whatever change you want to make, without knowing a strong reason why you want to do it, you will not do it. It's going to be pretty difficult, near impossible. Once you have that compelling why, you will now have a purpose to drive you forward when obstacles present themselves. So for example, when I was in Greenland, my compelling why was that the only way I was going to get off that ice cap was to make it to the other end. My why was I had to. I needed to do that in order to make it back home to my wife. There was no other way. So I needed to get back home, and I needed to put every step in front of the other, no matter how tough it was, no matter how many storms we faced, we had to keep moving. Additionally, we just kind of burnt our boats. We just moved forward because there was no other way off but the ice cap. That was a compelling why. Other ways to create a compelling why are to meditate on death. Imagine if you're going to die tomorrow, would you be happy with the life you've lived? Because the real fear is not the fear of what am I going to do if I quit my job, or what am I going to do if I can't exercise, I'm too scared to. All the fears that come through in our life, the fear of failure, fear of public speaking, the real fear is a fear of a wasted life. Ask yourself, is it worth it? If you go as many years forward into your deathbed, and you're lying on your deathbed, and you can ask yourself the question, have I lived a life worth living? Am I happy with the life that I lived? What would your answer be? Consider that answer, and meditating on death lets you change your life. Steve Jobs himself said that recognizing that I'll be dead soon is one of the most powerful tools I've used to make the big decisions in life. Ancient samurai used to believe that a person should meditate on death on a regular basis. That's a really a powerful way to create a compelling why. To get leverage on yourself, you can also use family. Sometimes you do more for the people you love than you would for yourself, for your wife, for your kids, for your husband, whatever it may be. That will give you a compelling why. So know your purpose. Create a purpose statement so you have something that drives you forward. I always like my strong driving purpose is to push myself into the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional unknown, and teach others with the wisdom I gain from that to help them do the same. Because I truly believe we'd be living in a much better world if everybody continued to push themselves. It would build a human family because we'd have a value for life. And how can you potentially hurt another human being when you really value life itself? So that's my why that drives me on a regular basis. The fifth step is to break disempowering habits. Once again, easier said than done, right? Breaking disempowering habits. Again, in that book I mentioned earlier, Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit, MIT researchers found that habits consist of three things: a cue, a routine, and a reward. Right here is the habit cycle. That's it. Everything we do is built with these three things, and in the middle is a craving. There, right there, is the power of changing habits. Why do we eat that chocolate? Because there's a strong craving for sweet. Or why do we do anything bad? Because there's a craving for it. Why do I drink? Because I crave the high, or whatever it may be. I need to relax. So in order to change the habits, in order to break them, you got to find out what the cue is first. So what is the cue? Let's take a look. Maybe you come home from work, you're exhausted. Your cue is you come home, you take your shoes off, you kick your feet up, and you open up a beer. 1 beer leads to 10, right? But the cue is coming home from work and to relax. That's the routine. You kick your shoes off, and you open up a beer. That's the routine. What's the reward? Relaxation. So you get to relax, you get to unwind, you get to stop thinking about the job that you hate, and that's the reward. So that craving is that release, right? That's the release that we get from that. In order to break disempowering habits, the golden key is to keep these the same, but change this. So that's why AA is so powerful. He talks about that in his book as well, is that they simply change the routine. So instead of coming back now, you get to go talk to you get to talk to a group of people that support you. We're going to bring in that element in the power of lasting change, but you got to change the routine. So when in AA they talk to people that really support them, that gives them the release that meets their craving and their reward. They get to relax. They don't have to think about their work because they're talking about things to people. So this is the habit cycle, and this is how you break any habit. It sounds simple, but it really is that simple. Just think about whatever habits you have, and you got to find out what the cue is. And then you got to find out what the reward is. Sometimes the reward's not what you think. Sometimes maybe, so let's say you go grab chocolate. The reward might not be the chocolate itself. It might be a chance to get away from your work for a bit. It might be a chance to just walk downstairs and maybe talk to people. If you're at work, it might be a chance to socialize. So you got to look at experiment different rewards and find out, is that the reward? And the way to do this is to log it. Log it. Okay, here's at 1:15 during the day, I walk away from my desk to get chocolate. And then that's my routine. And then what's the reward? Play around with it. Is it the chocolate? Is it getting away from your desk? Try new things. Try new routines. If I walk away and I don't go to the cafeteria, maybe I go to a friend's office. This is the example he actually talks about in his book. But maybe I go to a friend's office, and then I find out what the reward is. Oh, maybe the reward is not the chocolate. It's just actually socializing with somebody. So play around with this. Log your day. I actually, when I would change bad habits, that's what I did. I would log what is the cue. At the end of the day, sometimes back in the day, I used to like to open a beer to relax. The reward is the same deal like I mentioned earlier. So I played around with different rewards. It wasn't really about the beer. It was just to relax. I just changed my routine. Now I read a book. Whatever it may be. I sit down and talk to my wife. Different routine. Problem solved, right? So that's how you break disempowering habits. And a way to do that, which is actually a whole step on itself in order to create enduring change, is to interrupt the cycle. So what do I mean by that? To interrupt the cycle is actually a way to put a block between here. Put a block between here so you can change it. Because sometimes we're so conditioned, it makes it so easy, right? So you interrupt it, you break this, you stop it, and you create a new routine. So what are ways to interrupt the cycle? Often a really powerful way is to do something silly, do something outrageous that you wouldn't expect, you know? There's a story I've heard about this woman who was trying to get off junk food. She told her friends that if she were to eat junk food, anything bad, that she would eat this can of dog food. So every time she was even tempted, if she would walk by the fridge or whatever, anything like that, she would see a can of dog food. And boom, all of a sudden she realized I have to eat that if I get anything bad I don't want to eat, right? So now she's interrupted her pattern. Boom, something to shock her out of her normal routine. Because you go through this cycle, this is just a pattern. We're all stuck in patterns. Everything we do is a habit. Everything we do is a routine, it's a pattern. Whatever word you want to call it, it's the same thing. So all you got to do is interrupt that. Find a way to shock yourself out of the current way your mind is moving. You're moving along this way. Think about it, you're just driving on the street and somebody crashes into you, all of a sudden that's interrupted the pattern, right? So shock it. Now you're no longer just zoning out. It shocks you into a new reality. That's what you got to do. Find your own ways. Shock yourself by doing something outrageous. Do something really funny. Funny is a great way to transition from a new state. Think of humor as a sort of midway state. It moves from a disempowering place to an empowering place, and the humor is a great way to facilitate that transition. So you come up with your own patterns to interrupt. Sometimes for me, it would just be shocking myself. That's one work that works for me is really often is reminding myself. Sometimes I'll even yell to myself, no, I will not do this. Whatever it's got to be. Interrupt that pattern and you'll make changes. You'll break that habit. The next is to find new solutions in order to create new habits. To create new habits. Excuse the handwriting, but basically what that says is find new solutions to create new habits. My handwriting's terrible, I know. So what that means is you're going to find new ways to do it. That's kind of like finding a new routine, but it's looking for new solutions. You have to have, many of us don't make changes because we don't believe there to be a solution. How could I ever get out of my job? There's no possible way. I have to feed my family. I need my 401k. I need my insurance. So there's not even a perceived solution. So once we move to the steps, we break disempowering habits. We try to create, the habit of going to work. That's a longer term cycle. So it kind of moves through this in a flow. Sometimes it doesn't move through these steps. It moves through it more in a flow. But something like quitting your job, you got to have a solution. What is the solution? Okay, what's the worst that could happen if I quit my job? I'll have, I have $100,000 saved up, or I have 50,000, 20,000, whatever money saved up. Here's what I can do. I can facilitate the transition by, I can set myself a deadline 6 months from now, and in that time, I can start building the life I want to create. I can start building up my job. So you're creating solutions. And through that, you're creating new habits. Like the new habit will be when I come home from work, instead of kicking up my feet and drinking a beer, now I'm working on my company. So it's creating new habits because you found new solutions. So you have to have possible solutions in order to then create lasting change. And that is something for you to find. You have to do that on your own, to really sit down and ask yourself. You can get support. And that actually builds us to the next, the eighth step in 10 steps to enduring change, is to build a team. Success is a team sport. It does not happen on your own. I don't care who you are, don't even try to do it on your own. It may sound like it's an extreme statement, but it's true. Nobody who succeeds does it on their own. You need a team. Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins, Henry Ford, they all had mastermind groups. Mastermind groups are a powerful way. I myself have 2 mastermind groups. They're a powerful way to build a team who supports you on your ventures. Every day I call somebody at a certain point in the day to hold myself accountable for the actions that I take. That's a team. My wife is my team. Whoever you have at least one person in your life that you can enroll in being a part of your team. And then call them every day to hold you accountable to the actions you are committing to the goals you set for your life. That will make you stronger. Every goal that I have in my life is up on my website. You can see it right here. If you click on About and you read My Path to Immortality, which is my path to leave my mark on this planet, it's written there. Everything I want to accomplish in my life. So if I don't start doing it, people on the internet, people all across the world will hold me accountable to it. It forces me to hold myself accountable, because that's a team. Everybody, you are watching this, you are a part of my team, and I like to think that I'm a part of your team. We are all a team. That's what a community is all about. As additionally, here's the reward from that, is we get to meet a need for connection, right? That's a strong human need. So building a team gets to meet that need as well. And it's a powerful way to support you in creating enduring change. The next step is to make whatever change you want to make it be about more than just yourself. Make it be about more than just yourself. Okay, I think you get it, so I don't need to write it in the terrible handwriting anyway. But make it be about more than just yourself. What do I mean by that? What that means is whatever change you want to make, condition it so that it means something for a higher purpose than yourself. Condition that mentality. Say you want to quit your job, right? Because you hate your job. It's easier, like for yourself, it's easy to do. But now, what about the impact of your misery on what's it doing to your kids, to your family? Sometimes that'll drive you even more than the actual need to do it for yourself. This is what we were talking about, creating a compelling why. That's why this is not like a step by step. It's more of like a flow. But sometimes this steps actually helps it simplify it so you really understand the process. But when it means more than just yourself, it actually inspires you more. They have found, even for people coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder, not just from war, but in general, one of the quickest ways to recover from that and turn post-traumatic stress disorder into post-traumatic growth, which is a whole movement in the positive psychology philosophy, is to make it mean more than just yourself. It's to do something for a higher cause. Any trauma that I may have experienced, any misery that I may have experienced, any friends that I've lost in my life, whether it was in Iraq or in my drug days, any guilt that came up about how I could have potentially changed that, I use that to drive me forward, because now it's about more than just me. It's about all of us. It's about helping others make change in their lives. And that's what makes me want to get up in the morning. Otherwise, if it's just for me, what's the point sometimes? If your entire world is just for yourself, why do anything, right? I mean, yeah, there's still a reason. I mean, I ski across an ice cap for my pleasure. Of course, we like to do things for our own pleasure. But skiing across an ice cap for me was about inspiring people with that story. My little cousins in her classroom was watching my story. They were at home watching me tracking me across the ice cap. And so days that I struggled, I was like, I can't disappoint my cousin and her class watching me. I have to do it in order to inspire them, so that when they come through obstacles in their life, they won't stop. So even something like skiing across Greenland, which may seem like a somewhat selfish endeavor in that you're just skiing across an ice cap, what cause are you doing it for? I meant it mean more than just myself. Additionally, I managed to raise $3,500 for Doctors Without Borders. So the whole expedition became more than just me. And now I use that expedition to tell stories and share that experiences with others so they can cross their own ice caps in whatever way that means for them. So find your own ice caps, and whatever those may be for you, give it some meaning. Give it a higher purpose. That'll push you forward every single day. And the final step in the 10 steps to enduring change is to condition the new behavior. Everything we're talking about here is not going to change overnight. Let's go back to our pyramid of destiny here. All of these things, all of your needs, your associations to pain and pleasure, your values, your beliefs, your states that are controlled by the language patterns you've developed, the meanings you associate, all of these habits, all of these patterns have been ingrained in you from a young age, from a long, long time they're with you. It's not going to change overnight. I'm sorry, it's not that easy. But it is fun. That process is fun. The only thing that separates successful people from failures is that they move forward one step at a time. And the compound effect of that journey over time is what leads to success. Nobody gets there overnight. In Greenland, we had no idea if we'd get to the other end of the ice cap. We had no idea when we'd get there. But we just had to keep moving forward by putting one step in front of the other. And that's conditioning a pattern. So we had a routine, and we followed it for 28 days till we got to the other end of the ice cap. And whatever that may be for you, you condition that new behavior. And all of these steps, knowing yourself, becoming a warrior, all of these steps, condition them. Becoming a warrior, not a victim, is not going to change overnight if you're conditioned to have a very victim-like attitude. And it's okay. Nobody's always in warrior mode. We're going to move. It's kind of, think of it like kind of like a scale like this of warrior and victim. And you're going to move from one to the other. Sometimes something will happen. You might go in victim mode, but the key is noticing it. That's where knowing yourself is all about. And noticing it and conditioning yourself to stay in 100% responsibility mode. That's what it's all about, being that warrior mode. So condition the behavior, and I promise you, these 10 steps, they do work. I have escaped from a life of drugs. I have joined the Marines. I served in Iraq. I got out of the Marine Corps mentality. I've started 2 businesses. I'm married. I don't know. I mean, the only reason, sometimes it still surprises me that I've managed to find somebody who actually wanted to marry me, considering some of the patterns I had. But I did, and I managed to change them by using these 10 steps. At the time, I didn't know it, but now I've understood that this is what the 10 steps are. So just to kind of recap, the 10 steps are know yourself. That's where this matters. The pyramid, know all of these things, your needs, your pain, pleasure, your values, beliefs, your language patterns, what controls your state. Know all of those things. Find out what they are. Use the documents below. They'll help you with that. Then be a warrior, not a victim. Condition that mentality of 100% responsibility. Ingrain unbreakable confidence. Build that mentality. Create new beliefs. Believe in yourself. Without belief, nothing changes. You got to create that confidence. Next step is to create a compelling why. This is your leverage. Remember, the why drives everything. You have to have a purpose for whatever change you want to make. Know why you want to make it, and it will be made. I promise you. As long as it's compelling enough. That's the driving force. Next thing is to break the disempowering habits. And we talked about that. This is the habit cycle, the cue, the routine, and the reward, driven by the cravings. Break those habits. And then interrupt that cycle. Interrupt that cycle doing something to shock you or to induce a state of laughter. Create a new, that's really what you're doing is interrupting a state. You know, you're in a state like, okay, you're so focused you don't even think about it sometimes that you're going to go to the fridge and get whatever it may be, right? But you're interrupting that state and you're interrupting that cycle. What that does is it helps you find new solutions to create new habits. So you have to have solutions. Otherwise, what's the point, right? So once you create that belief that it's possible, then you got to actually have a step-by-step plan to get there. But before you even bother in that, first you know how to believe in it. So believe in it, then create solutions. Create step-by-step solutions on how to get there. And just start following the steps so it doesn't even become a thought. It doesn't even become a thought. It becomes a habit. And that's what it is, creating new habits. Then build a team. A team holds you accountable to your habits. So build that team, whether it's a mastermind group, an accountability buddy, your family, whoever. Get them to hold you accountable to your goals. It'll make it much easier to make your goals. There's actually a website. I think it's called stick.com. I believe so. I've used it once in the past, but I can't remember. It was a long time ago. Check it out. I believe it's stick.com. I'll post a link for you right under here as well so you can take a look at it. But that'll help you hold yourself accountable by actually putting a financial consequence if you don't stay on a certain habit that you want to ingrain. So sometimes the financial consequence is a powerful driver. Imagine if you were trying to condition a new habit and I told you you'd have to give me $500 if you broke that habit. How much more powerful would that be? So that's what that is, building that team to hold you accountable. And the consequences you get to set with whatever it is your team is, right? Like whatever your team and you determine, that's the consequence you get to set. And then finally, or the 9th step, make it be about more than just yourself. That's giving it that higher purpose. And finally, condition the new behavior. So I hope you all got value out of this whole training. It really does work. Just put it into action. Take your time with it. It's okay. This stuff does work. So just start implementing it. Start going out there and following these steps, and I promise you will start seeing results. You will start seeing results. If you have any questions about this, please post your questions in the comments below, or feel free to contact me. And you have my word, I'll get back to you. And I'm happy to help you support you on this journey. And remember, as you're going through this, have fun with it. Because remember, life is your playground. Go play it with joy and passion.